The color drained from my face as I stared at the phone in my trembling hands. A text message notification had popped up on the screen. "Can't wait to see you and my baby tomorrow. The idiot still has no clue." This wasn't my wife's regular phone. This was a second device I'd discovered tucked behind a loose drawer in the nursery I'd spent months perfecting. The nursery for what I thought was our child. I stood frozen in the middle of the pale yellow room, surrounded by the hand-painted woodland creatures I'd meticulously created on the walls. The crib I'd assembled piece by piece, the rocking chair I'd restored from my own childhood. All of it built for a lie. My fingers moved mechanically across the screen, unlocking a digital Pandora's box with Laura's predictable password, the same one she used for everything. What I found made me physically sink to my knees on the soft carpet I'd installed myself. Hundreds of texts, dozens of intimate photos, voice notes filled with laughter at my expense. "Poor Kevin," Laura's familiar voice cooed in one recording. "He's so excited about being a dad. If only he knew he was building someone else's kingdom." A deep male chuckle followed. Jason, her ex, the real father. "He's such a friggin' chump," Jason replied. "But hey, at least he's good for something. Nice nursery, by the way. Thanks, Kev." Their mocking laughter echoed in my ears as I closed my eyes, feeling something inside me crack and then instantly freeze over. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I didn't cry. Instead, I carefully replaced the phone exactly where I'd found it and walked downstairs to greet my wife as she returned from her prenatal yoga class. For the first time in our marriage, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I'd met Laura Michaels 5 years ago at a charity gala where my architecture firm had donated design services for a new children's hospital wing. She had been breathtaking in a shimmering silver dress, working the room with practiced ease, her Instagram followers growing by the hundreds as she posted carefully curated photos of the evening. I was the quiet one, the serious architect who preferred blueprints to small talk. But somehow, she'd noticed me. Looking back, I now understood why. I represented stability, security, a safe harbor for a woman whose lifestyle outpaced her income. "You build beautiful things," she'd said, studying my portfolio on our third date. "I've always wanted someone who could build something lasting." We were married within a year. I'd thought it was a whirlwind romance. Now I recognized it as a calculated investment on her part. The first 3 years had been good, or so I'd believed. Laura's social media presence grew steadily, transitioning from fashion and lifestyle to luxury home living after she moved into my meticulously restored Victorian in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood. I was proud of her ambition, her ability to turn our life together into something that inspired others. When she featured my design projects, it brought in new clients. We seemed like the perfect team. Then came the pregnancy announcement. I still remember dropping to my knees in the bathroom as she showed me the positive test, tears streaming down my face as I pressed my ear to her still flat stomach. It was the happiest moment of my life. "We're going to be a family," I'd whispered. Laura had smiled that camera-ready smile, already planning the announcement post that would later garner 147,000 likes and a stroller sponsorship. I began work on the nursery the next day. My greatest project, a labor of love. Now I knew it had all been a performance. The excited phone calls to her mother, the way she'd place my hand on her growing belly when the baby kicked, the tears in her eyes when we'd learned we were having a little girl. All of it, scripted content for her growing audience. And all the while, she'd been meeting Jason in hotel rooms, laughing at my devotion, plotting their future together, one funded by my hard work. Jason Parker. Her toxic ex, she claimed to have completely cut ties with years before meeting me. The startup investor with flashy cars and flashier promises who'd broken her heart, but apparently never relinquished his hold over her. As I methodically prepared dinner that evening, watching Laura upload her latest bump dates to her hundreds of thousands of followers, I contemplated how a man builds his life on what he believes to be solid ground, only to discover he's been standing on quicksand all along. "The nursery looks amazing, baby," Laura said without looking up from her phone. "My followers are obsessed with those little forest animals you painted. The woodland theme is trending like crazy." I nodded, stirring the pasta sauce with steady hands. "I'm glad everyone approves. The video tour got picked up by that parenting blog. They want to do a feature after the baby comes," she continued, completely unaware that I now understood her true plans. To leave me once she'd secured enough brand deals and financial stability, taking my supposed daughter to start a new life with Jason. "That sounds wonderful," I replied, my voice betraying nothing as I served her dinner. "We should celebrate." Laura finally looked up, surprised by my sudden enthusiasm. For a moment, I wondered if she felt a flicker of guilt as she smiled at me. "I was thinking," I continued casually, setting down my fork, "maybe we should do something special for our anniversary next month. Something memorable." Her eyes lit up. "Like what?" "A party. Something elegant. You could invite all your important contacts, your family, your sponsorship people. I could rent out that rooftop venue you love at the Grand Hotel." Laura clapped her hands together. "That would be amazing content. And we could announce the baby's name finally." I reached across the table and took her hand, the same hand that had typed disgusting messages to another man for months, the same hand that had caressed his skin while carrying what I thought was my child. "It'll be unforgettable," I promised. "Trust me." And for once, I wasn't lying. The first thread of my plan unspooled the next morning. I called in a favor from Marcus, my college roommate who now ran a cybersecurity firm. "I need surveillance, discreet, comprehensive, and completely legal," I explained over coffee in a shop 3 towns over from our home. Marcus studied my face. "This about Laura? You finally figured it out?" I nearly dropped my cup. "You knew?" He sighed, looking genuinely pained. "I had suspicions. She and that investor guy were tagged at the same charity event in Portland last year when you were at that conference in Chicago. When I mentioned it, she gave me this whole story about running into him accidentally and how awkward it was. Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried, man. Remember that night I came over to watch the game and asked if everything was good with you guys? You went on for 20 minutes about the baby and how happy you were. What was I supposed to say?" I remembered that night. I'd been so blind, so trusting. "So will you help me?" I asked. Marcus nodded grimly. "What do you need?" The cameras were installed within days. Tiny, undetectable devices hidden throughout our home, excluding the bathrooms for legal reasons. Everything was above board. I owned the house outright. My name was on all the documentation. I had every legal right to secure my property with surveillance equipment. The audio recordings began to amass immediately. Laura on the phone with Jason while I was at work. "He's working late again on the Jefferson project. Come over." "I miss you. Kevin's so boring lately. All he talks about is the baby. After she's born, I'll wait 6 months. Just enough time to leverage the momfluencer deals, then I'll tell him I'm unhappy. He'll give me whatever I want in the divorce. He always does." Each revelation should have devastated me, but instead, I felt a cold clarity settling over me. I used my lunch breaks to consult with Pierce, the shrewdest divorce attorney in the state, ensuring everything was documented properly. Meanwhile, I continued playing the devoted husband. I attended every prenatal appointment, asking concerned questions about our daughter's development. I massaged Laura's feet each night while she complained about swelling. I brought her favorite ice cream at midnight when she claimed to have cravings. "You're too good to me," she would say. "No, I'm exactly what you deserve," I would reply with a smile that never reached my eyes. As her due date approached, I noticed Laura's meetings with Jason becoming less frequent. Later, I would learn this was because he'd begun distancing himself, growing increasingly hesitant about the reality of fatherhood. In their fantasy, I was the provider who would be easily discarded when convenient. The reality of actually raising a child together was apparently less appealing to him. When Sophia Grace Taylor was born on a rainy Thursday in March, I was in the delivery room, counting fingers and toes, cutting the umbilical cord with tears in my eyes. I loved that tiny human instantly, despite the growing certainty of what the DNA test would reveal 2 weeks later. I kissed Laura's forehead as she cradled our daughter. "She's perfect," I whispered. And she was. None of this was Sophia's fault. The DNA results arrived in a sealed envelope while Laura was napping. I sat at my desk and opened it with steady hands, confirming what I already knew. The probability of paternity, 0%. I filed the report carefully in my growing collection of evidence, and then went to rock Sophia to sleep, singing softly to her as tears silently tracked down my cheeks. This would be the only time I allowed myself to cry. Laura's return to social media was meteoric. Her raw, unfiltered postpartum content, which was, in fact, meticulously filtered and staged, resonated deeply with her audience. Brands lined up for partnerships. The authentic motherhood journey of At Laura Luck's life became a case study in monetizing family milestones. I watched as she positioned us as the perfect modern family. The successful architect husband with his thriving practice, the glamorous yet relatable wife balancing motherhood and career, the beautiful baby girl with her father's eyes, a detail her followers frequently commented on, making Laura visibly uncomfortable in ways only I could detect. 3 months after Sophia's birth, I spotted the telltale notifications on the secret phone again. Jason was back, his hesitation apparently overcome. "I miss you," the text read. "When can you get away?" Laura's response was almost immediate. "Working on it. The idea is to move forward with everything after the anniversary party. Kevin's planning something big. Lots of my important contacts will be there. I can't mess that up. And then? And then I tell him I need space. File for divorce. Take half of everything plus child support. You and I can be together by Christmas." That evening was my breaking point. Not because of fresh betrayal, I'd grown numb to that, but because I overheard Laura on the phone with her mother. "Kevin's been amazing with Sophia," she said. "It's actually kind of sad how much he loves her." The casual cruelty of that statement crystallized everything. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about a fundamental absence of humanity. Laura didn't view me as someone she'd betrayed, but as someone whose love was pathetic, whose devotion was worthy of mockery. I walked quietly to my office and opened my laptop. The anniversary party, scheduled for exactly 1 month away, would need some special additions. "Marcus," I said when he answered my call, "I need one more thing. A presentation setup, projector, screen, the works." "Going forward with everything?" he asked. "Yes. It's time." "You're sure about this? There's no coming back from it." I thought about Laura's words. It's actually kind of sad how much he loves her. "There's already no coming back from it," I replied. "She just doesn't know it yet." The following weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization. By day, I was Kevin Taylor, doting husband and father, working diligently on my architectural projects. By night, I was the architect of something very different, Laura's complete downfall. I began by revisiting our prenuptial agreement with Pierce. Laura had signed it without much scrutiny before our wedding, too confident in her ability to circumvent any legal obstacles when the time came. The document contained several key clauses that would prove devastating. Infidelity would result in the unfaithful party forfeiting all claims to joint assets. Any attempt to misrepresent biological parentage constituted fraud. The use of joint resources to maintain an extramarital relationship would require full financial restitution. The prenup was ironclad. Pierce had made sure of it. Next came the financial preparations. I systematically documented every penny Laura had spent meeting Jason, hotel rooms, gifts, meals, all charged to credit cards linked to our joint accounts. The total came to just over $37,000 over the past year alone. I then contacted every brand partner and sponsor Laura worked with, requesting private meetings under the guise of planning a surprise business opportunity for her. These weren't small companies. They were major players in the parenting, lifestyle, and luxury markets. Brands that prided themselves on family values and authenticity. "I'm planning something special for our anniversary," I explained to each representative. "A celebration of family and partnership. I'd be honored if you could attend." They all accepted, eager to strengthen their connection to one of social media's rising stars. I arranged for Sophia to stay with my parents on the night of the party. Loving grandparents who would soon learn the truth, but would stand by both me and the innocent child caught in this web. 2 days before the event, I had a final consultation with Pierce. "Everything's in order," he confirmed. "The divorce papers, the lawsuit for emotional damages, the evidence. It's the most airtight case I've seen in 20 years of practice." "And the eviction notice?" "Legal and ready to be served. Since the house is solely in your name and not joint property, she'll have 72 hours to vacate." I nodded, feeling nothing but calm resolve. "What about the child?" Pierce asked gently. This was the only part that still caused me pain. "I've arranged for a temporary custody agreement that gives Laura primary custody with supervised visitation rights for me," I explained. "I won't use an innocent child as a weapon, no matter what Laura has done. But I've documented everything, including her plans to use Sophia as leverage for financial gain. If she tries to prevent me from maintaining a relationship with Sophia, I'll fight her with everything I have." Pierce studied me with something like respect. "Most men in your position wouldn't be this measured." "I'm not most men," I replied. "And this isn't about revenge. It's about justice." But as I left his office, I knew that wasn't entirely true. This wasn't just about justice. It was about making sure Laura and Jason understood exactly what they had destroyed and ensuring they could never rebuild it. The anniversary party was everything Laura could have dreamed of. The Grand Hotel's rooftop venue offered panoramic views of the Seattle skyline, glittering against the backdrop of a perfect summer sunset. White roses and silver accents adorned every surface. Champagne flowed freely as Seattle's elite mingled with Laura's family and the representatives from 12 major brands. Laura was radiant in a silver gown, reminiscent of the one she'd worn when we first met. She moved through the crowd like a queen holding court, Sophia on her hip for the first hour, the perfect accessory for her carefully curated image of successful motherhood, before my parents took the baby to their hotel room for the night as planned. I watched her charm everyone, secure in her belief that her secret was safe, that her future was assured. I almost admired her composure, the absolute confidence with which she played her role. In another life, she might have been a remarkable partner. In this one, she was simply a remarkably effective con artist. At precisely 9:30 p.m., I clinked my glass to call for attention. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate 4 years of marriage to this incredible woman," I began, raising my glass toward Laura. The crowd applauded appreciatively. "Many of you know that this past year has been especially meaningful for us with the birth of our beautiful daughter, Sophia." Laura beamed, basking in the adoring glances and nods of approval. "My wife has always been exceptional at sharing our life together," I continued. "Her ability to capture and showcase our most intimate moments has inspired hundreds of thousands of people and built connections with amazing brands, many of whom are represented here tonight." More applause. Laura's eyes shone with pride and triumph. In fact, Laura is so committed to documentation that she's maintained not one, but 2 separate records of her life. A flicker of confusion crossed her face. "Laura, Would you like to say a few words before I continue? I asked, offering her the microphone. Always eager for the spotlight, she stepped forward. Kevin has been the foundation that made everything possible, she gushed. Without his support, his love, his trust, I wouldn't be where I am today. He built our home, he built our nursery, he built the stable environment that allowed me to pursue my dreams. The crowd sighed appreciatively. And as we welcome sponsors like Gentle Hearts Baby Products and Family First Financial into our extended family, she continued, nodding toward the respective representatives, I just want to say that authentic connection and absolute honesty are the values we live by every day. I waited for her to finish, to return to her seat with that self-satisfied smile. Then I nodded to Marcus at the back of the room. Speaking of authentic connection and absolute honesty, I said as the lights dimmed slightly, I've prepared a special presentation to commemorate our journey. The projector hummed to life, illuminating the massive screen behind me. The first image appeared, a split screen of 2 text conversations. On the left, Laura's public Instagram messages about preparing for motherhood with me. On the right, her private texts to Jason discussing their affair and laughing about my obliviousness. A collective gasp rippled through the room. No, Laura whispered, her face draining of color. Kevin, what are you doing? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The presentation continued relentlessly. Hotel receipts matched to calendar entries labeled prenatal yoga, voice recordings of Laura and Jason mocking my excitement about the baby, security camera footage from our own home showing Jason entering on days when I worked late. And finally, the DNA test results, displayed in stark black and white for everyone to see. The silence in the room was absolute. Laura's mother had both hands pressed against her mouth in horror. The brand representatives were frantically texting on their phones. Laura stood frozen in the middle of it all, her perfect world disintegrating around her. Kevin, she finally managed, her voice breaking. I can explain. It was a mistake. I was confused. A year-long mistake? I asked quietly, my voice amplified by the microphone. A confusion that resulted in deliberate paternity fraud? A series of mistakes that you and Jason documented extensively while spending tens of thousands of dollars from our joint accounts? She began to cry then, mascara tracking down her carefully contoured cheeks. Please, not like this. We can talk about this privately. The way you privately discussed leaving me after using this party to secure your sponsorships? The way you privately plan to take half of everything I've worked for, plus child support for a child that isn't mine? That kind of privacy? The whispers had started now. Phones were recording. Laura's carefully constructed public persona was being shredded in real time, witnessed by the very people she'd most wanted to impress. I love you, she tried desperately. I made a terrible mistake. But I love you. And you love Sophia. I know you do. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice steady. I do love Sophia, which is why I've arranged a temporary custody agreement that allows me to remain in her life while granting you primary custody. I won't punish an innocent child for your actions. Relief flooded her face. Thank you, Kevin. We can work through this. We can... I held up my hand to stop her. That's the only mercy you'll receive from me. With that, I nodded to Pierce, who stepped forward with a leather portfolio. He handed Laura 3 documents. This is a petition for divorce on grounds of adultery and fraud, I explained as she stared numbly at the papers. This is a lawsuit for $37,452.18, the exact amount you spent on your affair using our joint funds plus damages. And this, I said, pointing to the final document, is an eviction notice. You have 72 hours to vacate my property. Laura collapsed then, sinking to her knees on the polished floor. You can't do this to me, she sobbed. Where am I supposed to go? I looked down at her, thinking of all the nights I'd spent planning the nursery, all the times I'd held her hair back during morning sickness, all the love I'd invested in a complete fabrication. "That," I said quietly, removing my wedding ring and placing it on the table beside her, "is not my problem anymore." I turned and walked toward the exit. As I reached the door, I paused and addressed the shocked audience one final time. "The bar is open for another hour. Please enjoy the rest of your evening." The aftermath was swift and absolute. By morning, the story had exploded across social media. Someone at the party had recorded most of my presentation, and while they'd been decent enough not to post the actual footage online, the detailed accounts spread like wildfire through Seattle's social circles and Laura's followers. Laura Luck's life became Laura Lied life overnight. Her carefully cultivated image of authentic motherhood crumbled as brand deals were publicly terminated one after another. Her follower count plummeted as the same audience that had once adored her perfect family narrative now vilified her for her deception. Laura's parents, traditional people who had always been somewhat uncomfortable with her social media career but proud of her apparent stable family life, refused to take her calls. Her younger sister Amanda sent me a long message apologizing for not warning me about Jason's continued presence in Laura's life, explaining that Laura had sworn it was over each time Amanda had confronted her. Jason, predictably, vanished completely. When Laura called him from a hotel room the day after the party, his number had already been disconnected. His social media accounts went private, then disappeared entirely. According to a mutual acquaintance, he'd accepted a sudden business opportunity in Singapore, about as far from Seattle and his responsibilities as he could get. I moved through these days with a strange sense of detachment, focusing on practical matters. I arranged for all of Laura's belongings to be packed by a service and placed in storage, prepaying for 3 months, my final act of consideration. I changed the locks, security codes, and Wi-Fi passwords on the house. Through it all, I maintained contact with Laura solely regarding Sophia, adhering strictly to the temporary custody agreement. When we exchanged the baby for my visitation days, we met in public places with my lawyer present to prevent any accusations or manipulations. Laura aged years in weeks. Her immaculate appearance deteriorated as her financial situation grew dire. Without her sponsorships and with frozen access to what she'd thought were joint accounts, she was forced to move into a tiny studio apartment in a part of town she would have never visited in her previous life. The lawsuit meant any income she managed to secure would be garnished for years to come. 2 months after the party, I ran into her former assistant at a coffee shop. "She's working at Nordstrom now," Becca told me with a mixture of schadenfreude and pity. "Cosmetics counter. Part-time. Can you imagine? Last year she was pulling in 5 figures per sponsored post, and now she's spraying perfume samples for minimum wage." I nodded without comment. It wasn't satisfaction I felt at this news, but something more complex. A sense that the natural order of things had been restored. Actions had consequences. Lies had been exposed to the light. The divorce was finalized in record time, the judge unsympathetic to Laura's tearful pleas after reviewing the mountain of evidence. The financial judgment followed shortly after. Laura would be repaying me for years to come, a constant reminder of the price of betrayal. As for Sophia, I kept my word. Despite having no biological connection to her, I established myself as a consistent presence in her life. My lawyer helped me secure legal standing as a de facto parent based on my role from birth, ensuring that regardless of biology, I would remain her father in the eyes of the law. It wasn't her fault that she had been conceived in deceit, and I refused to disappear from her life the way Jason had. Laura seemed genuinely grateful for this much, at least. "You're the only stable thing in her life now," she admitted during one exchange, looking thin and exhausted. "I didn't deserve you, Kevin." "No," I agreed quietly. "You didn't." 6 months after what Seattle social circles now referred to as the anniversary incident, I was having dinner with Marcus when he asked the question others had been too afraid to pose. "Do you regret any of it?" The public exposure? The scorched earth? I considered this carefully, twirling pasta around my fork. I regret that Sophia will one day learn about all this, I finally answered. I regret that I spent 4 years loving someone who never really existed. But the rest? No. You could have just divorced her quietly, he pointed out. Taken half the house, arranged visitation. I shook my head. That's what she was counting on, my continued passivity, my continued role as the fool building someone else's kingdom. I set down my fork. Some betrayals run so deep that the only appropriate response is to bring everything into the light. Sometimes justice requires witnesses. Later that night, I stood in the doorway of what had once been the nursery I'd built with such hope and love. I'd recently repainted it, replacing the whimsical forest creatures with a simpler, cleaner design. It was still Sophia's room for her visits, still filled with carefully chosen toys and books, but it no longer represented a lie. I thought about Laura's words from so long ago. You build beautiful things. I've always wanted someone who could build something lasting. The irony wasn't lost on me. In the end, I had built something lasting, a life defined by truth rather than comfortable deception, by self-respect rather than willful blindness. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine, built on a foundation no one could ever take away. And that, I decided as I quietly closed the door, was enough. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.